Welcome, everybody, to the show. This is Counterclipping show number 219 for April 21st, 2025. So everybody is aware already. You've noticed that the ticker is down there, so read the ticker. We'll get to all of that in just a minute. Tonight's topic is GMT and the tariff situation. So let me have a brief disclaimer first. I really intend to talk about the situation, which is what it is, rather than the politics that has caused the situation, because none of us here can do anything about that. I also am not going to try to position myself as some kind of tariff expert, but I do know what a tariff actually is. So, just so everybody knows, the chat is being monitored extremely closely tonight. It may become somewhat political, but we're all friends here, remember, so let's bear that in mind. The rule is, if you can talk like an adult, you will have no problems. If you become childish, you will be placed on timeout like a child. So, Stacking Limit and myself will be monitoring the chat most closely. I do not have anything to clip tonight because I do not want to miss any messages. So, this is exactly what I mean, Mark McNair. This will result in you going away if anybody does that. So, like I said, I have high confidence that all of the regulars will be able to behave themselves as adults. I am drinking Farmhouse Rye, and I have poured a extra large container. I have the vape thing with me here. This orange mango vape juice, by the way, goes very weirdly with Whistle Pig Farmhouse Rye. So before we get any further, let me remind everybody that please do like the video. Please do subscribe to the channel if you have not done so already. Super chats and super stickers are on. It's a great way to get your comment highlighted, so I will respond to it, and also to support the channel. There's a bunch of other ways to support the channel in the video description. We're going to do the GMT. The GMT update is the topic tonight. So let me get the rest of the business out of the way, and then we will get busy on that. Big shout out to the patrons of Ardwulf's Lair, without whose support and encouragement we would not be able to keep doing this, as well as our good friends at Noble Knight Games, the official sponsor of the Counterclipping show, from whom we will hear a little bit later. For now, let's say hello to Aaron Danis, Alistair Logie, Bill Simone, Board Gaming Geezer, Bob Goddard, Chad Kennedy, Charles Latorre, Chet Bell, Christophe DeClerc, Christopher Smith, Danny Seckery, Dave Poirier, Dip Gamer, welcome to the show, DJ Flippy, EL, also welcome to the show, E4 Airman, Gregory Campagna, Gronyard Rich, HUN644 New, Iggy Crick Tall, I Manatee, the legend himself, Fucko is here, James Whitmer, Jeff Anderson, Jeff Beeler, Jeff Edwards, Jeff T, Joe Hammond, John Mogg, John Madison, Kyle Harris, Mark McNair, Marty Sample is here, Matthew Pulver, Meandering Mike, we got a lot of people coming in here tonight, Michael Avanzini, Michael Berry, Michael Karlowski, these glasses are not that great. Panzer Division Lair, Patrick of Patrick's Tactics and Tutorials, Paul Dangle, Paul Sin, Perfidious Albion, Perry Sparopoulos, Paul Sin, Perfidious Albion, Perry Sparopoulos, sorry about that. Rick Cox, Rob Johnson, Ryan Huard, Scott Bell, Sean Mulroy, welcome to the show. Sean Sullivan, Stacking Limit is here, who is our moderator this evening. John Longshore should be along shortly. Stephen Rochelle, Stuka Joe is in the house. SW, Steve, thanks for stopping by. The Command Tent, Tim Zales, Todd Cox, Vicky, welcome back. William Bird and Wolf Dog, and I apologize to anyone that I missed. So, let us. Carl Fung is here as well. If I didn't get you before, Carl, thanks for stopping by. Brandon, thanks for stopping by. All right, so we've got a lot of people here already. So let's get the news out of the way first. So as you undoubtedly remember, last Sunday, not yesterday, but the Sunday before, on the Chit Show, we did a Wargame sale of my stuff, and this past Sunday, we did Dan's stuff. So check that video out if you're interested in any of that. It's probably mostly gone. The stuff from my sale is definitely gone, and everything is out the door as of today. So sorry for the extra delay, but we had a bit of drama late last week when I received, I guess I'll tell you the whole story. I got charged for Swords and Bayonets either today or yesterday as well, by the way. So, again, we're trying to. I want to closely monitor the chat here. There actually are, believe it or not. So, like Thursday, I get an email at work saying your HR ticket requires your input, and I'm like, I didn't file an HR ticket. What's going on? So I go look at this alleged HR ticket. It's got my name on it, apparently submitted by me, and it's a request for a confirmation of a separation agreement. Now I think all of us know what that means. So one of three things had occurred. A, I was about to get fired. B, there could be an HR hiccup, which has happened in the past with my employer, and it's no big deal as long as it gets fixed eventually. They, in fact, have an HR hiccup right now that they are fixing for me. This was not the ticket. Or C, there is someone trying to claim unemployment in my name. So I called Ohio Unemployment, and that indeed turns out to be the case. This ate up a considerable amount of time at the end of the week last week. So it is all sorted out. I believe I have taken all of the proper precautions, and I think we're going to be okay. I do have a tiny bit of Charles S. Roberts Awards news. I don't really like to use the show for this, but I haven't posted anything on social media about it. So our nominating process should be completed by the end of the week. The public ballot will be open during the month of May, so May 1st through May 31st, so stay tuned for that. Everything has been proceeding as normally as it does every single year. I just haven't been, updating everybody. So anyway, we will move on from that. I will be running, because I will not be attending Buckeye Game Fest, I will be running from home on the internet, Classic Traveler, on May Day, May 1st, from 7 p.m. to 11 p.m. or thereabouts, Eastern Time. I will be sending out inquiries for players to let me know that they would like to play sometime this week. So please wait for that notification to go out. Patreon patrons will receive priority, and I expect to fill the entire game in 2 minutes. So it's going to be a different thing than we did last year. So it's going to be pretty cool. One last thing before we get to the show topic. Lorain County, Ohio. Thomas, I'm sure we've mentioned. Oh, yeah, obviously we have. I grew up in Lorain County. All right, so how was I going to mention? Oh, right, the Noble Knight campaign update. So we are working towards a copy of the revised edition of War in Europe from Decision Games, and we are at 61%. So progress is excellent. This is probably going to run for another month or so, maybe two. After that, the next campaign, I know what the next campaign is going to be. It's going to be a completely different type of thing. So stay tuned for that. I think it will prove very exciting and will go very quickly, and it isn't going to be for me. So anyway, but I won't spoil that quite yet. I do know what the plan is. All right, so back to the chat, just to make sure everybody's great so far, okay? I got, not sure I got my shipping info. I got charged today for the ASL Starter Kit magazine. So, this is, Mark, this is 100% the way I feel about it. Well, it's not 100% of the way I feel about it, but I agree with the statement 100%. So, anyway... All right, Classic is my preferred for one-shots. This is going to be a one-shot. For a campaign, I would indeed use the current edition of Mongoose Traveler. So, Dip Gamer is asking a question about board wargaming's golden age, when we've had so many games produced and been dependent on low production costs that were, for many reasons, unsustainable. This is a legitimate question, actually. Somebody has already mentioned in the chat, these games, the kind of games that we're talking about here, are, in fact, luxury goods, right? I am doing okay as far as these particular luxury goods. So, personally, if there is a major disruption to the ability of wargaming publishers to get wargames into the hands of wargame players, I think that will be very unfortunate, and I don't want that to happen. But at the same time, I've got more than enough to keep me playing until they put me in the ground, and then some. Lynn Pratt from Central Ohio. Thanks, Lynn, for stopping by. So, I have also had the experience that MMP ships fairly fast. William Ahrens, we will talk about this. William believes that GMT's change in foreign shipping is just one of the unintended consequences that this policy could bring about. And we'll get to that, because I have thoughts about that. So, up until now, they have in fact been sustainable. So this is a complete wild card situation. Now, I want to emphasize again, I would like to talk about the situation The politics of it is what it is, and we all have our own opinions on that, which is fine. But it is the situation that we are facing. And if anybody is going to come in and tell us that GMT is lying, then, well, okay. But I think that would be a weird hill to die on, if you ask me. So this is good. Unless these tariffs go away, I'm going to have to start playing stuff instead of buying more. That is fair. Hey, man, I do unboxings of old games. So that's kind of the point. I have around here, what do I have left in the shrink wrap? Not very much. I've got 2 interesting pieces left in the shrink wrap. They're both RPG pieces, though. Yeah, ASL-SK is the Advanced Squad Leader Starter Kit. It's like the introductory version of Advanced Squad Leader, which is otherwise somewhat complicated. So, yeah, and Bill, I'm with Bill here, too. I could not buy another game ever, and, I wouldn't run out of stuff to play. So even if I do last another 30 years, which if I keep drinking scotch like this is definitely a question that we should probably be asking. So, I understand the Brandon is mentioning that he's trying to stay positive and see the situation as one where he can work on the pile of opportunity. Others may, in fact, not be so fortunate, as we are going to get into this evening. So, do I have anything else before the GMT update? Now, as usual, I'm not going to read the whole thing, but I am going to read kind of a lot of the opening statement from Gene Billingsley. So let's pull that up, and let's change over to this screen. This screen. We'll do this screen. All right. So let me make that just a hair bigger. All right, so there's going to be the usual stuff at the bottom, which is what's new on P500, what's shipping, and all that stuff. But really, the meat of what we're going to end up talking about, I'll get to all that eventually, but the meat of what we're talking about is right here. So this is Gene Billingsley talking. First off, Gene would like to note that due to the length of the first section, there's some sections that got skipped. I will paraphrase as necessary. Those sections that got skipped this month will be back next month. So, Gene says that it has been a wild and challenging month of April already in terms of tariffs and trade wars that have a direct impact on GMT and their operations, and they're barely halfway through the month. This came out last week. Before Gene gets to that, he would like to personally thank everybody who took part in the 40% off sale. Everybody got products at great prices, and many people bought items in the sale because they wanted to help GMT through what looked like it was going to be a trying situation. Spoiler, it is going to be a trying situation. He would like everybody to know that GMT appreciates the kindness and concern and willingness to help, and we'll talk about that again in a moment here as well. All right. So yeah, no kidding. And you're gonna, you're right on the cusp here with yours as well, with Seljuk as well. So, all right, I just want to make sure, and everybody's doing okay. All right, so GMT's cash flow situation, and cash flow is kind of key to this conversation, right? A lot of game companies have gone under due functionally to cash flow problems, including SPI. Okay, so. That will help GMT be a little more flexible and resilient as they face the new challenges in the form of heightened tariffs. All right, so into the tariff conversation. Gene, like me, is not particularly interested in talking about the politics of it. And again, the reason for that, if at least here, is that we are not a political place, right? You want to go listen to tariff experts, they are out there. Go listen to them. They will give you all of the requisite facts. We're only going to be dealing with 1 or 2 of those numbers here today. Brant, thanks for stopping by. All right, and recognize, too, that the situation is super volatile. What it looks like today might not be what it looks like tomorrow, much less next week. So that could go either way, though. It could become worse, or it could become better. Nobody has any idea. And that, which of course is part of the problem, right? Uncertainty in financial markets is troublesome. So, all right. Cash flow might, yeah. Well, not all necessarily, but this is going to create issues even for those publishers that do print in the United States, like New England Simulations and MMP, at least today, and against the odds, because the cost of the paper pulp a lot of that stuff comes from Canada, and there's tariffs on Canada too for some reason. Anyway, all right. So, the tariffs create a huge functional cash flow and pricing problem for GMT, as they do for much of the board game industry. Today, Gene is going to be as transparent as possible as he explains these issues, what they intend to do to move forward, and how everybody can help. Why not just start printing in the US? Okay, so this is a question that gets asked a lot, right? And not everybody necessarily knows the answer, which is that the facilities to print this kind of thing at the kind of scale, and GMT is in a bit of a unique position here, right? Because they're not printing super duper small quantities, nor are they printing like mass market offset printing quantities. And Gene gets into that a little bit as well. So unfortunately, GMT does not have the option to just move printing back to the US because the quality and precision of manufacturing needed to produce many of the components just does not exist at the scale and pace that GMT at least needs. They have searched and will continue to do so, and there's more on that we'll talk in later. This seems to be entirely possible. GMT's got, I mean, I've seen pictures. I've never been to the warehouse. It's a fairly big warehouse for game company purposes. So I agree. So, but I have had a little less moderation over the last couple of days. So I am trying to minimize the armchair expert phenomenon coming from the seat here to you, because we're talking about GMT specifically and other companies that this might affect as those topics come up. Okay. All right. And again, there are a bunch of people here. I should say this. There are printers in the United States. They are way backed up. They have existing relationships with the people that they print for already. And GMT can't just make a phone call to the same people that print stuff for MMP and say, hey, can you squeeze us in? We're going to need 50,000 total games by the end of the month. They will not do that. In general, those people who think it would be relatively easy or painless to shift production of this kind of product back to the United States, which I think we can all agree is a laudable goal, invariably do not work in the printing industry, nor do they have any connection with the gaming industry, nor have they ever been a publisher who's actually making the phone calls to find this information. It is just the way it is. Every single publisher will tell you this, okay? Anyway, so this might, and actually we're going to get into this a little bit too. Well, I mean, Demi 1970 Gaming, welcome to the show. I mean, I am not trying to, and again, we're trying to talk about the situation rather than the politics. And I am not trying to suggest that there aren't problems with our economic relationship with China that need to be addressed, right? Nor am I particularly going to complain tonight, at least, about this particular policy, because, again, it is what is happening right now. So I want to talk about the effects of that policy, okay? Firms do work with just-in-time inventories, not in the game business. Ford can afford to do that. General Motors can afford, and I've worked in JITS Industries before. Just-in-time inventory. Big companies can leverage their suppliers to do this. GMT is not a very big company on the scale of Ford or General Motors or Chrysler. So, well, Phil B., thanks for this question too. Welcome to the show. Bill from Compass did say that the tariffs wouldn't be an issue for them, but that is because I think there's an expectation that's somewhat reasonable, but nobody really knows, that this situation will not endure forever. And it happens that Compass, just the way Compass ships and warehouses stuff, Bill's got probably 9 to 12 months of new games of inventory sitting in the warehouse right now. Not everybody is going to have that luxury. So there are agreements between different companies, different countries for IP rights, but those are often flouted too. Again, there are legitimate problems in the general situation that endured up until, whenever we started doing this stuff. But at the on the other hand, I am not going to try to address the question of whether this is the correct approach to solving those problems or not. Pirates, actually. We should contract some pirates to help us with this problem. GMT games have definitely not been printed overseas since day one. That is a relatively recent development, say in the last 10 years or so. I'm not swearing by the dates. I could figure it out, but I don't know. But it hasn't been forever, I can tell you that. I think not just in the early days, but up until somewhat recently, I think they printed in the U.S. Again, I think it's been about 10 years. All right. So they are searching and continuing to search for domestic options. And there will be more on that later. Price is an issue, as are the bids they receive from U.S.-based companies. Were 3 to 4 times what it currently costs. I think we probably all would look askance at a quadrupling of the price of any particular game. And remember, the price to print is not the MSRP, but GMT's got to, whoever, it doesn't have to be GMT, has to build in a bunch of margins to pay the writers and the artists and the warehouse people and all pay the bills to keep the warehouse lights on and all that stuff out of that money. So it's not like they can just say, we will eat an extra 20%. And in this case, we're talking about a lot more than 20%. We're talking about approximately 2.5 times what it will cost to ship to produce this exact same material with quality that will tend to not be as good. Frankly, because these same people that have been printing for GMT for the last however many years it's been have a relationship with GMT. If there's a problem, they can fix it, all that stuff. So, even at hugely increased costs, here's a key point here. Even at hugely increased costs, the few U.S. companies that can do some of the work that GMT needs can't produce anywhere near the quality that everyone is used to with the current production methodology in China. Why doesn't GMT man up like the captains of industry used to do and take out a loan and build their own factory and become a real American employer? Well, their employees would be fairly surprised to learn that they are in fact not an American employer. The days of captains of industry and actual competition are basically over. So that would be why. We're on a little bit of thin ice here, so let's be careful. Cost of collating, this is true. Some companies do their own collation in-house. MMP does, for example, at least they always have. GMT used to, but they don't anymore. This all gets done in China. And again, we'll talk about that again in a minute here. All right, so John Madison, thanks John for stopping by this evening, is with the 10K Games Initiative. They are working on their first release, and they're like running numbers right now, and that's, I'm sure, not a process that is complete. But as John says, he priced the game out at the U.S. printer, and it's 5 times the cost, and they've never done counter sheets, which sounds like a potential issue. Committing to a U.S. printer with potential quality problems is scary, but you could have potential quality problems with an offshore printer too. You can be assured when you have worked with that printer before. Okay. Very few publishers of anything are their own manufacturer too. This is absolutely true in the game business. But remember, there are exceptions they went out of business. Avalon Hill was owned by their printer. Yaquinto was owned by their printer. Neither of those companies exist anymore. So, all right. So let's continue here. Okay. So GMT, Gene, again says that they printed in the U.S. for many years before moving offshore, due mostly to quality issues. And again, people at SPI can attest to this too. They are tired and frustrated with the bad old days of paying for 10,000 counter sheets and having to throw 25% of them out because they were miscut and they didn't get credited for it, which is common for, at least it was, for domestic printers. For the few of those companies that still exist today, the machinery is now older. Their capability to produce high-quality components hasn't kept pace with what the consumer now expects. And I really got to give a big shout-out to Stacking Limit, he's doing way better on keeping track of the chat than I am being here. There's a very robust chat. We have over 200 people here. So, those companies that do exist domestically have only have so much capacity, right? They're not in a position. GMT does print a lot of games a year, a minimum of 2 a month, and sometimes as many as like 8 or 9, right? And that's just, GMT's model. They are a company of a size that is going to be affected by this much more, well, at least more than either a smaller company that's printing 500 copies and might be able to find a local print shop. They might have to increase their prices or, deal with quality issues or whatever, but at least it's an option. Again, unless you're going to take the position that GMT is lying, then I don't think that that is going to hold up here. HUN644 says that this would be Dave Heath from Lock and Load, said that he got a U.S. quote and a China quote for Blood and Fury. U.S. quote was $98. China was $20 to $25, which is exactly, well, and this is why companies print in China, right? So we'll get to, Chris George, thanks for stopping by. We will get to this. Production costs are at this point are not expected to be 300 to 400% higher, but they are expected to be about 150% higher, which means that the cost to make the game, which let's just say it's $10, it will now cost about $24.50 to produce the same game, and that will have the same magnifying effect on the final retail price, because almost nobody is capable of just eating it, right? All right, the chat's going good so far, so I am happy about that. Frank says that if they don't relocate printing back to the U.S., they will always be at the mercy of the political situation. And yeah, I mean, this is absolutely true. But up to now, that situation has not been particularly problematic, and they've been able to work with those constraints up to this point. This is a dramatic shift of the landscape in which a company of GMT's industry and size operates. So, all right. Carl Isa, thanks for stopping by once again. We'll get to this actually. We'll get to GMT's plan here. So, GMT, MMP did say they were going to stop their plan to move production to China, which was, the timing seemed funny, but there's that. All right, so back to the GMT update. Let me get some water here because I'm doing a lot of talking. All right. So the onshore printers either are vastly more expensive or just unable to meet GMT's needs, or more probably both. Ironically, although GMT is too big for those onshore printers, there are European printers that do have facilities here in the US, but GMT is too small for them because they're going to want 20, 30, 40,000, 50,000 copies, right? At minimum. And that's always been fairly typical for offset printing. It's just that we've been able to use workarounds to get around those limitations. Like, a Chinese printer might be happy to print 500 or 1,500 copies, which is, in the general neighborhood of what GMT prints, with only a few exceptions. This leaves GMT with virtually no viable options to print in the US at high quality and at the scale that GMT needs and that their customers expect. And again, we've said this before, they've been exploring and will continue to explore alternative arrangements for printing outside of China, but they haven't found anything that works yet. Now, I will mention, this has been mentioned in the chat, that Grant over Pushing Cardboard had a conversation with David Heath on video. If you want to go hear David talk about it, if a publisher's going to, know the deal. Bill Thomas has talked about it on the Compass Games live stream, so feel free to look at those resources and see what those folks are. We'll get to this too. So thanks for stopping by. I'm not going to try to pronounce that. We will call you number 64 for now. All right, so here's the pep talk part of it. So we're in this together. As we can see from the details that Gene is showing, and we'll get to that in a second, these tariffs and their meteoric rise over just a couple of weeks have presented a set of huge and potentially fatal problems for GMT. What Gene is trying to say is that they are doing everything they can to plot a viable route through this morass, and would like to say that they can't do it without you, the customers, all of us that buy GMT games, okay, which is me and most of everybody in the chat. So I wouldn't hold off on ordering a P500 game, but you might. I don't know that you know what? We'll talk about the effect on the like production schedule when we get to the production schedule, because I think that's kind of its own thing, right? All right. So one of the effects of the tariffs and the dialogue around them is that a lot of people who live outside the U.S. are angry at the U.S. government right now, some even boycotting U.S. products, which is happening. One of the effects, Gene would like to remind us, although they understand the frustration and anger, you don't have to be mad at GMT. In fact, there's no reason to be. They believe that they've done right by their customers for 35 years, providing quality products and customer service and treating everyone with kindness and respect. They've hosted many people at GMT's events. I don't know if Gene mentions this or not, but they like gave a bunch of games away during the pandemic. So, yes, then this is exactly what I was touching on. Mark has been dealing with his printer for 30 years, right? They know exactly what he wants. He knows exactly what they will produce. Their games are fairly expensive, more expensive than GMT's games would be, and they are printed in much smaller quantities. So, all right. So, where were we here? All right. So, in the environment of heightened tensions, frustrations and anger created by these issues, everybody is being challenged. Accurate again. Will we retain our good relationships and friendships? That's a question that we all have to answer. And again, I guess I'll say this now, but I'll end up saying it again. There's going to be like a, hey, try and buy some games from us in a little bit here. Everybody's going to have to make that decision themselves. Well, I mean, Joe, they are actually, in fact, already P750s. So I don't think an extra 500 copies will necessarily make any useful difference at all. So game designers work for different companies. They work together and help each other. But it seems that the game companies are, the game companies are the ones paying the bills for the most part. So that's absolutely true. Thumbs up the video, folks, if you haven't done so already. All right, so GMT, we're getting into the GMT approach here. So they'll stay true to themselves and treat all their customers, employees, and strategic partners in whatever country as friends who are worthy of kindness and respect. Great. In principle, I am on board. Despite what's happening at the national level, that doesn't change who they are. What's being modeled for all of us is care about yourself. What is being modeled for all of us at higher levels right now is care about yourself, get your advantage, don't worry about others, demonize your opponents. That's a little political. Of course, all right, so GMT's trying to do the right thing for customers and all that is where this is really going. I believe that there's been a de facto admission that the number is really more like 750 nowadays. So, Michael Berry, thanks for stopping by. We are going to talk about this too, because there is a ray of sunshine for GMT customers who do not live in the United States. Also, I will point out that, as Gene mentioned, there are printers that have printing facilities in multiple countries, right? Lulu is one of them. So those companies, and this is unfortunately not helping the board game business at all, but it might affect the RPG business. Lulu can print in the United States, and it's not going to be a problem. So, and there are other situations like that, but again, we're talking about, in almost every case, much larger quantities. You need people who know how to run the equipment, too. What are you going to import them for? I mean, I don't think there's tariffs if you import the people that run the press from China. So, all right. So where do we leave off here? So here at GMT, they're going to continue to do everything they can to be transparent with the customers and to show leadership and respect to everybody. They intend to make sure that we can continue to enjoy the hobby. I'm for this too. And the GMT games for many years. They respectfully and imploringly ask that to join us in these commitments to each other as we consider how to keep GMT creating great games, even in the face of the biggest threat to our continued existence as a company in the past 35 years. So let's look at the actual issues breakdown here. I think we will get to this, Sean Sullivan, because I have thoughts. So there was somebody floated the idea of all the publishers getting together and like opening up a printing company, which could potentially work, but that's not the kind of thing you can just do in like the next couple of weeks, right? And those presses, if they're sitting idle, they don't they're costing everybody money. You got to maintain them even if they're not running. All right, so issue number 1, cash flow. This, again, many game companies, and SPI is an obvious example. Other examples I could think of would be from other industries, but cash flow is super important. And if you manage not to get out of a cash flow hole relatively quickly, your company may be torpedoed. So, all right, so because of the 100, and again, this is what the number is right now. The number could change. The 145% number could change, could go down, could go up. Nobody knows. That's the uncertainty is a part of the challenge here. Because of the 145% tariff, those batches of games that are currently being printed in China, as well as future batches, are going to cost much more than they planned when they were told that the tariffs were 10%, because that's what they were. They had a plan for 20 to 40%. So GMT currently, we'll see this later as well, has 14 games at the printer. The total bill for that should have been about $500,000. Instead, it is going to cost $1.2 million to get those games into the country instead. And GMT doesn't actually have, just like you and me, GMT doesn't have $750,000 just laying around waiting to be spent on this, right? And then they've got to pass that cost on as well. So, because they can't eat it. Well, number one for any company is cash flow, right? If you're operating in a deficit, that big companies can often afford to do that. GMT's really not a big company, even if we might see them doing so. Oh, that's true. Liz at Beyond Solitaire also talked to Jason Matthews. And now if you know who Jason is and what he actually does for a living, which is not designing Twilight Struggle, I think you will recognize that Jason may have an informed opinion about this stuff. So, all right. Everybody's doing great in the chat so far. All right. So, how GMT prices the games, which is issue number 2, is not the biggest problem. The problem is that they don't have the money to import the games right now, because this situation suddenly materialized between when they placed the order with the printer and where the printer is now. There are companies in the wargaming hobby that have said outright, if we're going to, I don't remember who this was, that have said outright in the last week, we're going to have the inventory destroyed. We can't afford to bring it over here with the tariffs at this level. Okay. So obviously this is not sustainable. GMT needs to make big operational changes quickly, and they'll have no money left over to pay employees and all their other expenses. So, what can GMT do to solve the problem through pricing, even though their costs have increased by 145%? And remember, if we say that the costs have increased by 145%, that means that a game that used to cost $10 will now cost $24.50. Okay? So the math isn't necessarily transparent. And, again, this is reflective of larger problems in the economy, got nothing to do with wargaming. I mean, again, these are legitimate problems which have not been fixed, that have been kicked down the road for a long time. So, if and I will leave it to you to decide. I will not mention what my opinion is. I will leave it to you to decide whether this is a good strategy to engage in to fix these problems. Don't even say it in the chat, but just keep it to yourself. I will keep mine to myself, and we're talking about the effects of what the current situation is, at least right now. So, so they can't afford to just eat the tariffs, which is the least surprising thing I have heard in the 2025 so far. So they're going to try to do what they can to help international customers avoid the tariffs and minimize their effect on U.S. customers. And to be blunt, this will not suffice if the situation as it stands today persists in 6 months, which, I'm not sure it will, but nobody knows that. How can you plan your business operations if you do not know that? So we'll talk about worldwide availability. So continue to increase cash. This is GMT's plan now. Continue to increase cash reserves. They have a lot of inventory apparently, and there's 5 new P500 games that are going to charge literally today and ship on May 1st, and they need more cash right now, more than they need inventory. And again, there's going to be discounts. So they are setting up a loyalty appreciation discount code, which is GMT25. It's going to be good for at least the next 60 days. And you can plug this into a GMT order and get 25% off everything, even the stuff that they haven't even shipped yet, the stuff that they charged for today. However, Congress of Vienna is sold out. So there's that. John, we're going to get to this. We are going to get to this. Show patience. So, all right, this is, I mean, if the games never come out because they had to burn them all in a field in Guangzhou, then the vassal module is irrelevant. So I trust everybody knows how to enter a discount code. This is going to work. And if you haven't, I put the link to this statement in the chat anyway, so you can read the whole thing. All right. Another way to increase cash reserves is to buy the digital games. These would be the ones you can get through Steam. I don't know what percentage Steam takes on this, but you can get digital versions of Rebel Fury and Twilight Struggle and Labyrinth. I've got all of those except for Rebel Fury. So you can buy those too, and it gives GMT a little bit of money. Current tariffs should not affect these particular sales because, as we will see, GMT has put a hold on stuff that is coming into the country, which is really kind of they have to right now, right? All right. So right now, the existing games on the table that they build for today are not affected at this time. So for non-U.S. customers, the country of origin for all those games is China, not the U.S., so you will not face reciprocal tariffs. You'll only face whatever tariffs your country has on Chinese stuff right now. This is kind of a big deal here. Transform worldwide shipping to ship direct from China to non-US P500 customers and distributors throughout the world. So what this means is that a fulfillment service in China, whether it is the printer or a different company, will be shipping, say, to Australia, New Zealand, wherever, will be shipping directly to those countries, to you, if you live there, rather than shipping it to GMT and then GMT doing it. Now, this is more efficient. It's certain, well, at least I haven't run any numbers here, but it certainly seems like that at least is going to be a good thing for customers in, say, Australia, New Zealand, who have been getting boned on shipping costs for a long time, and that has nothing to do with GMT. So hopefully that will work out. I'm guessing here, but I suspect that at least in the first couple of shipments, there will be issues. There will be fulfillment issues that need to be solved. Hopefully those things will get, if that does happen, hopefully those things will get ironed out. There are some companies who are pursuing this, John Madison, pursuing printing what they can here or somewhere that's not affected by tariffs, and printing what they can't print anywhere else based on the volume and product that they're making in China, and they'll figure it out. Now here's an important point here that Gene mentions. Ship direct from China to non-US P500 customers and distributors. This plan essentially means that GMT, as we will see in a minute, will be out of brick and mortar game stores, pretty much, unless somebody has the initiative to call GMT up and order games directly from GMT. And there are retailers that are big enough to do that. Noble Knight can do that, for example. There are other companies that can probably do that too. But most brick and mortar game stores will not be able to do that. So, all right. So, Jason Carr is working on this transformation of worldwide shipping situation, and we'll see that downstairs as well. They already have a preliminary plan in place with partners in Europe and Australia, and they intend to have solutions for all non-US customers, P500 again, before the next P500 charge after today's. The The effect of this will be to avoid the huge China to U.S. tariffs for all non-U.S. customers, and then GMT pays the tariff, right? So if they can do it right, those folks, distributors around the world at least, should be able to get their games at cheaper overall cost than before, right? Because this potentially at least introduces efficiency, potentially. And problems, but problems are solvable too, right? Ship to the U.S. warehouse only the games they need to fulfill U.S. P500 orders and U.S. distributor orders. So if a distributor doesn't order, let's take By Swords and Bayonets, for example. A distributor doesn't pre-order a quantity of that, they ain't getting them. They're not going to probably be able to get them afterwards because they will evaporate immediately. Even if GMT has a few extras, they're going to print less so that they can fulfill their P500 orders. This, again, makes total sense. I have not seen anything out of this from OSG. I did get something from Against the Odds today, and they print in the U.S., so their costs might be impacted because of paper pulp cost, but they don't expect any major problems. And Against the Odds is in the middle of a 5-year plan to wind down the company anyway, so... I mean, I don't know if it's going to be in the gaming hobby, but somebody is going to do this, right? Canceling orders does not help the situation. So that is absolutely true. All right. And yeah, that ATO thing is basically a retirement situation. They've been doing this forever. So, and they've still got another couple of years worth of product. So, of upcoming product yet. Avalon Hill did print in the U.S., and you know what? They did a generally poor job at some of the printing functions that they did. The die cutting in particular. Avalon Hill's die cutting was rough, especially by modern standards, but it wasn't that great even back in the day. Well, we'll see. Decision is a weird company in one particular respect, in that historically... they have they're printing for the entire year in a single batch job that they tend to get in the first month or two of the year, right? I don't know if they're still doing that. And if they are, then they may be covered for the year. That's possible. So, there you go. James Whitmer got his copy of First Victories. They sent through a retail store that then sent it through Canada Post. So, indeed not. Indeed not. Hasbro can't really end MMP. They could end the deal with ASL at GCACW with MMP. I think that's unlikely. They're not going to make any more on GCACW than they are anywhere else. Or honestly, I think with ASL. All right, so if GMT has to, meaning if the tariffs stay where they're at today, they will set up ongoing warehouse arrangements in other countries to allow distribution nearer to where the customers are and limit tariff costs for those customers. That doesn't help those of us in the U.S. They will begin to charge a tariff surcharge on only games that come into the U.S. for as long as they have tariffs. They're not going to change P500 or retail prices, although I expect those to go up too, just not necessarily for this reason. But they have to account for the extra tariffs, and they can't just eat the money. So they're going to limit the number of games they pay tariffs on between previous points, and then they're going to help eat some of the cost. And then what's left will appear as this tariff surcharge, which we'll see the actual numbers here in a minute. And they're not bad, at least at the moment, for what we're actually talking about. And not necessarily. And we can talk about this. Let's assume I would kind of like to talk about this at the end, once we're through this update, because we're nowhere close to near. You see where my scroll bar is here. We're nowhere close to being through with this. I don't think that the answer is necessarily yes. All right. So tariff surcharges. First games to get the surcharges are the 5 P500 titles that are charging today. So unlike future surcharges, which won't apply to international customers, these charges will apply to all orders for these particular games, because they're sitting at GMT, right? Or they're about to. These came in when 20% tariffs were in effect, so they're not as bad as they might otherwise be. So the costs will be somewhere between $1.21 and $2.10 per game, or 49 cents, I guess, and $2.10 per game for these 5 games that they will be shipping out shortly. I personally don't have any problem paying an extra 50 cents for By Swords and Bayonets. I did have to cancel my due to completely other issues. I did have to cancel my pre-order for the Battles of the American Revolution Tri-Pack number 2, unfortunately. I will try to pick it up at a later time. All right, these numbers will become vastly worse at 145% tariffs, up to 15 to 25%. Now, here's point number 5 of GMT's action plan. They have put a 30-day hold on any games going to the printer and instructed the printer not to ship any of the 14 games that they are printing now until GMT gives them the go-ahead. They will pay some warehousing fees at the printer for dunnage and stuff. That's understandable. But that's way less than 250% of their expected cost. So you'll see some delays on the production schedule and for near-term P500 games, but it will help GMT to kind of pace the cash flow out, and that it's possible they'll have to change the timing of P500 charges to have slightly longer charge-to-ship windows to make all this work. So expect an update if they are going to do that. I'm not going to try, and I have backed MMP on their pricing before, but I'm not going to try to tell you that MMP games aren't expensive. They are, in fact, expensive. But I play them, so I will get my money out of an MMP game more than likely. Unless it's a non-series game, then maybe not, but I buy mostly series stuff. All right, and again, the hope is not a strategy, but there's a hope that this whole thing will, if not blow away, then become manageable for U.S. companies who are stuck in this position. So, all right, yeah, you get a... I will not comment on that. Everybody's cool. All right, so they're going to expand and enhance their product line with more games from their friends and partners in Europe and increase promotion of those games. So most of us are already aware that GMT carries a considerable amount of product from other game publishers, mostly European publishers, including Hexasim and Udogribi Games and a bunch of Vivictus and a bunch of other stuff. They're going to try and do that and increase localization opportunities with those European publishers to have them maybe sell some GMT games in Germany or whatever. So how can we help? This is kind of where we're getting to the gist of it here. And once we have learned how we're going to help, we're going to hear from our sponsor. So the biggest thing is to keep buying the GMT games that you were planning to buy anyway via P500 and from the warehouse directly. Direct purchases will help GMT more. That even with the discount that you'll be getting 25%, remember, you will help GMT more if you buy them direct. If the customers keep buying the games and more international customers get to participate in P500, and again, this is kind of the silver lining for people offshore who might be getting at least less boned on shipping costs moving forward. Buy the digital games. I might pick up Rebel Fury because of this, for example. It is reasonably inexpensive, and I can probably swing the 10 or 15 bucks or whatever it costs. Especially for international customers, tell your friends in gaming groups, we're doing it right here tonight, folks, about what GMT's doing and that P500 participation will get you games faster at the best prices, which has always been the case unless you are getting stiffed on shipping because you live in Australia or New Zealand. All right. And, again, John, I'm with you. As far as this goes, I'm with you here. I mean, it's not like I'm going to run out of stuff to play. That's not going to happen. So, but I would also like to see the wargame hobby, not be irreparably damaged by this. And losing GMT would be a big blow. I mean, remember what a big blow it was that SPI went away. And then later Avalon Hill. So those are... those were big losses that it took a long time for this hobby to recover from. All right. If you can't buy their games right now, play them, right? On Rally the Troops, Tabletopia, Board Game Arena, Vassal, whatever you got. I'm a little irritated that they didn't mention Vassal. Spread the word about GMT games with social media posts. We're doing it again right here, folks. So And I'm not doing this to help GMT out. I think I think we need to talk about this because this can have a huge effect on what we talk about on this show in 6 months, right? All right. Well, if it was ASL product, this was a pretty good strategy anyway, to be fair. All right, that was a tab crash. Thank you, Chrome. Let me pull this screen share up again. All right, so there's a lot of talk about GMT's values and stuff like that. Ultimately, what it's going to come down to is if you can spend some money right now and there's some GMT games you want, it'll help GMT out if you go buy some. And as an added bonus to you, you're getting 25% off if you use that code. So, all right. We're going to step away from the tariffs for just a moment, but we're going to get back to it because there's more. All right. GMT's nominated for a bunch of Golden Geek Awards over on BGG. If you're interested in voting on that, feel free to go ahead and vote on that. And here's a list of them. Jester Robin Hood, I Napoleon, Rebel Fury, Red Dust Rebellion, Tanto Manta, and Vijaya Nagara, I guess, is a better pronunciation than what I was using before, but it's probably still wrong. Digital news. Mark Herman's Rebel Fury is live on Steam for PC and Mac. The game is great, so go grab it. Mr. President, Digital's coming, and Ananda Gupta's working on it. I think that's going to be really very nice. Rally the Troops has just released via... I'm going to call it Vagina Gar because that's what I've been calling it the whole time. I know it's wrong, but sorry, anybody that's... Well, I will be happy to take corrections. Let's put it that way. Yeah, Congress of Vienna is already out of stock. That's true. I'm glad I got it when I IP500 did that, so I was cool. All right, so that's available on Rally the Troops now. Brazilian customers are still working on that. They got some volunteers to try and fix this up. They're still working on it. There's an update on counter issues for the Battle for Normandy. We should talk about this too. It feels refreshing to not, I have to concede that it did come out exactly this way. Sorry about that. Yeah, this is true too, right? If, I don't know if GMT is in a different position than a lot of other game publishers might not be. And I'm not talking about just war game companies. Worthington is going to be significantly affected too. And I don't know if they've said anything or not, but they're also going to be affected. Anyway, let me take a break from talking about the counter issues for just a moment. We'll talk, or the tariff issues, and we'll talk about the Battle for Normandy counter issues instead. So there has been a review. There are 2 counters that are unplayable. There are 38 counters that have errors, but are notionally playable. There are 24 counters that are not playable. There are 34 counters that do not have the visual stripe on the reduced side, and 3 counters that have the incorrect range. So they're talking about doing a replacement counter sheet for some of these problems. I'm sure we will see that eventually. I will be watching, and then I can maybe play Battle for Normandy New Edition, which is nice, other than this problem. There's a new Great War Commander item from Hexasim, the Strategy Cards expansion. If you like Combat Commander and you have not yet tried the World War I incarnation, I've seen this played at conventions. You might want to check this out. It's not from GMT, though. It's from Hexasim. So, well, right. I mean, Alistair, as I've pointed out a couple of times, this could go away or it could get worse. Yeah, any time. There are 50 copies of Great War Commander strategy cards in stock. Game demos at Origins from GMT include Combat Commander, Commands and Colors Ancients, Congress of Vienna, being run by me. Just of Robin Hood, Holland 44, being run by one of our Columbus crew. Illusions of Glory, In the Shadows, the Plum Island Horror, Red Dust Rebellion, and Twilight Struggle. So, and you will be able to buy GMT games at the Enterprise Games booth at Origins. So, data card thickness variants, notice for Panzer Expansion number 4. So they were not printed on the counterweight stock. They were printed on like regular stuff. That's apparently a GMT error. And, okay, they are called punch boards when dealing with the print factory. And apparently that is just going to be a problem. I don't know that it's a huge problem. Here is Mark Herman, Harold Buchanan, and Charles Vassy, which is great to see these gentlemen having a good time in London, apparently. Okay, there's GMT Talk stuff. Playtesters wanted. Development update, Jason Carr. This is going to touch on tariffs again, folks. So I am going to take a quick break, make sure I haven't missed anything idiotic in the chat. And we are going to hear a quick 30-second spot from our sponsor, Noble Knight Games. So take it away, Noble Knight.
Here at Noble Knight Games, we've been carefully growing the world's largest selection of board games, role-playing games and dice, war games, miniatures and paints, card games, and more, going on 25 years now. Our rustic castle contains more game and hobby goodness than you can shake a stick at, complete with careful packaging and the finest customer service the land can provide. You can buy, sell, trade from anywhere in the world, just like nature intended. Noble Knight Games.
Now, before we get back into this, I would like to remind everybody once again to like the video, subscribe to the channel if you're not already subscribed, and there's a bunch of links in the video description to support the channel, including the affiliate link for Noble Knight. If you buy something, which you were presumably going to buy anyway, from Noble Knight through that affiliate link, I get a little kickback in the form of store credit, and this particular batch is going to War in Europe, second edition from Decision, but the next campaign from Noble Knight is going to be super, super exciting, and it will represent, for at least somebody, a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. And it's going to be something that I will give away, okay? We'll talk about that once this one is complete. All right, so the GMT1 update from Jason Carr is basically, hey, I haven't been able to, I can't really tell you too much about solitaire development right now. It's happening, but I'm kind of busy with this international shipment fiasco that we're dealing with right now. So, and Stacking Limit and John Longshore deserve adult beverages of their choice for their sterling work they're doing this evening. All right, so he's continuing to work with the team to help solve these fulfillment problems. And remember, they were already working on it before because Australians are getting stiffed on shipping, among others, are getting stiffed on shipping costs. Here's a bunch of vassal stuff that has been updated. Fields of Fire, Congress of Vienna, that's actually new. Clash of Sovereigns, Combat Commander Europe improvements, and a new module for In the Shadows. That's I think that's actually, I forget whether that came out or not. So, this is a good question. So Clash of Arms, I am reasonably sure, is printing their stuff through the same domestic printer that Against the Odds is. I believe that to be an accurate statement because they bundled some of their business already together. Where Marshall Enterprises prints is, this is going to sound unkind or callous, and I'm sorry about that, but my personal hunch, based on no actual facts at all, is that they are being printed in Dennis's home office. So those games should not be affected, I would think. I don't know that. Again, if Dennis wants, we'll have Dennis back on at some point, actually, but I think that's the case. The shocking thing is that I have not fumed up this entire room so far. All right, so skipping over that, Combat Commander items, I really need one of these blankets. Designer interviews include Ananda Gupta and Jason Matthews. I think they missed Liz on here. Yeah, Jason talked to Legendary Tactics too, actually. All right, so P500 editions. There are two. Draken, Renaissance Reconnaissance at Verdun, and a third printing of U.S. Civil War, which is an excellent game. Let's take a quick look at Draken. This is a game by Volko Ruhnke. So Volko has revolutionized war games before, and he might do it again with this. This looks to me to have something like a resemblance to Fields of Despair, which came out several years ago from GMT, and which I have played, and which is really pretty good. Now, I don't know that mechanically it's similar at all. It's just giving me that vibe because there's cards and dice and stuff. But I still haven't bought the blank. Remember, we have a financial problem going on here, too. So I don't know where New England Simulations prints, but I know it is domestic. Go check out my it's an interview / unboxing of Winter's Victory with Mark Hinkle. He talks about exactly, I don't know that he gives us the name, but he does talk about how they print in that interview. So, hand assembled, ordered from Amazon. I don't really care. I don't care too much about the boxes. Somebody posted up thread that, hey, let's ditch the boxes. They're unnecessary. And I somewhat agree with that, but like the mass, and there's plenty of like old school hardcore wargamers that won't really care, but the general public will. Marty will probably have the information. They use a printer in northern Massachusetts, and the counters are done in Philadelphia. So, well, they literally only print like 250 copies of them. That is why. And they're nice. There's nothing wrong with their components, unless there's errata. That could happen, but there's nothing really functionally wrong with their components at all. All right, so Verdun 1916 is Volume 2 in Volko's Recon series that begins with Coast Watchers. So if you turn out to like Coast Watchers, take a look at this World War I edition. So we've covered that. New P500s. There aren't any. Wait a minute. Well, these are the teasers for future P500s. They didn't give us any this time. And I don't blame them, because why tease what you don't know what the hell's going on? So, I mean, Mike Reed, you're not wrong here, right? This is a problem, which up to now hasn't been much of an issue. So now it has suddenly become an issue. And there was like no way to like predict that the tariffs would go, the projected tariff increase was to 20% from 10%, and now it's 145%. I mean, I don't know that anybody could plan based on that. And again, that, it is a dynamic situation that is continuing to evolve, and nobody really knows what the situation is going to be in a week or a month or 6 months or whatever. So I am inclined to agree with Wargame Ramble on this personally, but we might have to make sacrifices. Who knows? Hey, I have seen copies of SPI monsters go sold by SPI in Ziplocs. So it has been done before. I'm not saying I like it, but it has been done before. All right, coming events. GMT Games Day on the War Room with ID Jesters getting Gene on. That's pretty awesome. Good job, Jester. Weekend at the Warehouse, April 24th to 27th. The GMT East is the same weekend in Schenectady, New York. SD Hist. The SD Hist East is canceled for the year because nobody knows whether they'll have the facility or not. They hope that it will be back next year. There is an online convention occurring instead. So there's that. There are, depends on what you're having made. Board games, and what we are talking about is board games, right? War games are board games. For board games, the economical place to print has been China. It's not just board games, obviously. Vietnam's got manufacturing, and India's got manufacturing, and there's a variety of different things, but they all make different stuff. So some method of pre-order, whether it's called P500 or something else. All right, so Heavy Cardboard talking about just a Robin Hood. I'm pretty excited about Congress of Vienna, to be completely honest. It looks pretty cool. All right, the next charge and shipment batch, again, should have charged today. I got hit for By Swords and Bayonets. Anybody that had the American Revolution Tripack number 2, Panzer Expansion number 4, second printing, which is France 1940, The Bell of Treason, or Volume 5 of The Last 100 Yards should have been charged today, plus a little bit extra for these tariff surcharges, but these numbers don't seem crazy. Perfidious Albion, I got the entire game and the expansion back into the 3-inch box last time. Admittedly, it was packed really tight and not optimally organized. So, all right. Production outlook. On the bright side, there were 14 games at the printer right now in various stages. 5 games wrapping up art this month, another 4 behind them. Normally, they'd be very happy, but thanks, tariffs. They are looking, what they are hoping is a brief delay in production. Ideally, they'd switch over to US-based printers and just keep moving, but they're working on that, but they have not managed to arrange it yet in a way that actually works. And they are not closer than when they started. So, and you've heard similar things from other publishers and stuff too. So, ADG did do their printing in the Czech Republic. That's true. They literally just ran out a couple years ago. It took them close to 10. I don't know exactly how much, but it took quite a while to sell all those. Let me put it that way. All right. So there's 56 printers that they are having conversations with. Some of them are U.S. companies, but they are, in fact, a company that has an office in the U.S. and is actually printing in China, which does not help. Most of these companies will what the printing people will call punch boards, which what we will call counter sheets. That tends to be the problem. If it's just a big poster map that's not mounted, that you can get printed in the US, right? That's not a problem. Mounted maps are another story. They're fantastically more expensive to print here than they would otherwise be. And having dealt with my share of shittily die-cut counters over the years, I would like to see GMT's counter creation process continue to be as good as it has been for the last several years. And that has been the Chinese production. So some of those U.S. people won't return your calls because they're probably buried in inquiries at the moment. Many of them have minimum order requirements that are in the 20 to 30 to 50,000 piece range. GMT doesn't print anything like that. I think their normal print run is something like 2,000 or 3,000 copies. And for something big, they might print 20,000 if like Twilight Struggle or something like that. But normally that's not something they can really do. And there are thin margins, right? And the designers aren't making much money either, right? Nobody's living on their design income in this hobby. Or they're retired and, you know, it's an extra couple nickels in your pocket at the end of the year, right? They're still following up with all of this. And here's the joke, actually. They have joked with Gene and Jason about getting together with other game manufacturers and opening their own print shop. I mean, that is a cute idea, but it would take a year or two, I would guess, to set something like that up in the first place. And then again, you need the equipment, which is not cheap. I mean, they don't have the extra 750 grand pay the tariffs. They probably don't have the extra 250 grand it cost to buy the off-cent printing equipment. And I'm completely spitballing that number, but it's probably not as far off as you might think. I don't remember GMT ever doing foam core counters. I remember GMT having foam core counters at like conventions for demo copies and stuff. Those I'm sure got handmade. All right, so there's Board Game Geeks talk here from Stonemeyer. They're not in great shape either. At the printer, there's some exciting stuff here, folks. Army Group North, Barbarossa Army Group North is at the printer. And tariffs mean you ain't getting it in May. So, Barbarossa Army Group North, 2nd edition, China's War, a bunch of stuff for Combat Commander, Cross Bronx Expressway, Hubris, game on the Alexander's successors. It looks really interesting. All the Space Empire stuff, including the new expansion for that. Stuff that is currently on hold to not go to the printers unless there's some kind of development. No, there you go. Heidelberg offset printing equipment costs millions. I have no idea, but, more than my laser printer. I'll tell you that. Well, so Kickstarter is a different, this is absolutely correct, of course, but it really is a different conversation than the one we're having tonight. But that said, there are people with Kickstarters that are going to get stiff too. So, or that will not fulfill because of this situation. So going to the printer whenever they can. Next War Taiwan 2nd edition, Seljuk from our good friend Justigard. Silent Victory 3rd printing, Stalingrad 42 2nd edition. The Hunters 4th printing. A bunch of stuff for Unconditional Surrender, also a good game. And the Western Campaigns, the new game in that family. Nothing else has changed in final art and proofing, and even if it had, it wouldn't be going to the printer right now anyway. Kick Enders. I believe somebody has probably come up with this line before, I think. There you go. I love this idea, Carl. What a fabulous idea. All right, so final art and proofing, 1833 NE, which is a railroad game. Ardennes 44, 2nd printing, and the model maps for that, plus CNC Napoleonics expansion number 7 Grand Battles. I had to cancel that too, plus some other stuff that was there last time. Q3, again, it's all tentative, really. The new things here are Decisive Action, Fields of Fire Volume 3, North Africa 40, British Way, I guess is an expansion or addition to the British Way, and Three Dog Deluxe, which I didn't cancel. I really want that. And Thunderbolt Deluxe, which I also didn't cancel. I really want that. I've been waiting for that for literally 20 plus years. A bunch of other stuff, Q4 2025, A Distant Plane, new printing of that, House Divided, a new printing of that, classic from GDW, Army Group South has moved in. Both North and South are in the production pipeline somewhere. I Napoleon second printing, the expansion for I Napoleon, another Labyrinth expansion, Lenin's Legacy, which looks interesting, and the Battle of Cowpens. And then 1Q 2026. Apparently, this has been pushed back further than I thought. Echo from the Dark and Hammer and Sickle. And then there's a bunch of stuff here, 2026 and beyond, that I'm not really going to... Well, you know what? I will highlight anything that I think is particularly interesting here. Army of the Potomac, all on board with that. Away team, very curious to see that. Epipoli, I want to see that, as it will be the entry of the Levian campaign games into Ancients. That's cool. Imperial Fever might be interesting. Microverse, I've tried. It's pretty cool. Musket and Bike Dual Pack, interested in that. Don't have it on order right now. New printings in Nevsky. Order and Opportunity, that looks very interesting. Time of Crisis Deluxe, if you're interested in that. Battle for Sicily, right? So there's all kind of cool stuff here that we'd sure like to see. Hope we see it. All right, Dip Gamer. Do you mean of Ardwulf's Lair? Because if so, thank you very much. I appreciate that. The Battle of Pigpens from Meandering Mike. Good one. All right, could paper sheets of counters be more easily mass-produced in the... Yeah, you could print them at Staples. They will look like shit. Print and play, print and play. We'll get to this in a minute. I want to finish the update here, which is more or less just looking at box covers and maps and stuff. Emergency Response Handbook. This is pretty cool from the Plum Island Horror thing. Here's some people playing Baltic Empires. More Baltic Empires. Let's see what else we got here. This is Zhang He. Again, I know I'm pronouncing it wrong. P500 reprints. We're not going to pay any attention to that. All right, so let me pull the this down, and we'll start with William Aaron's comment here. What I think you're kind of getting at here, William, is print and play a viable option? And you know what? I think we will end up seeing some companies exploring this. Either that, or we're going to see more stuff getting printed through Blue Panther. And I believe Steve Jones at Blue Panther has been ramping up production more or less continuously for the last couple of years. So, well, thank you very much. It is much appreciated. I literally wouldn't be able to keep doing this without the patrons, to be frank. So Kickstarter, all right, I don't back that many Kickstarters. However, that said, in 2024, I probably backed at least twice as many Kickstarters that year as I have in any other year, and probably as many as all my other crowdfunding things put together. Now, most of those were RPG things, because we see a lot more RPG stuff on Kickstarter than Wargame stuff, but that also includes Lava Tide to Calm from Against the Odds. That includes the next game from the Hegemony Games people, which is not a war game, I don't think, but it's a board game. It's going to suffer from the same constraints. Unless they're printed in Europe, which is not impossible because it is a European publisher. So maybe they'll come up with something creative. However, I got an email from Atlas Games the other day, which was about what they think this is going to do to their pending Kickstarter. Not pending, it's already over. But they still have to deliver the new edition of Ars Magica, which I'm a big fan of. So they said that some of the stuff that they have sold through their crowdfunding thing, which I think was BackerKit, not Kickstarter, can be produced, at least not in China. So they may be able to avoid some of the extra tariffs, but that the books themselves pretty much have to be printed in China for pretty much exactly the same reason that we just read from GMT. That said, the way it looks at the moment is that books will not be affected by the tariffs. Again, we don't know whether that will change or not, and there has at least been talk of it changing. So we will see. I better read I'm less interested in reading the comments than I am in what the publisher is saying, but I really should check into this. So apparently it's on hold. That sucks. Well, my money's not on hold with them. My money is with them. So I will look into it. Red Sash Games prints through Blue Panther, as Mike knows, and they're maybe the only publisher that prints like big games through Blue Panther. Red Sash stuff some of it looks pretty interesting. It's quite expensive, but we're talking like, maps with 2 or 4 maps. I thought that was a cat. 2 or 4 maps and like 8 counter sheets and stuff, like big games, right? And that's just not really what Blue Panther is set up to do. Well, get rid of the map too, right? Because posters are not maps. You can call them posters. I don't know. I don't know. We're getting into stuff. Folks, I'm going to tell you if I have no idea, okay? I have no idea. Iggy, I would say order it. You can always cancel the order. If you want to get 3 Dog, I would order it. Because then at least GMT knows you're on the books as wanting it. So, to be fair, while Red Sash Games is, some of their games do look very intriguing, their website is not great. So that is a problem. I am not mounting my own counters. I'm just not. But I do think we will start to see various publishers exploring other avenues to get war games into people's hands that aren't necessarily the traditional way. We have already seen the growth of print-on-demand war games through Blue Panther and a couple of other companies that are doing it. We have seen in the last few years several publishers, including Worthington and, of course, Mike Lambo, do book war games that appear to be doing reasonably well. So I think we are going to see, more companies exploring those other options. Oh, it's just one dude? I find this incredibly unsurprising. Well, board games do not qualify, but most RPG products are sold as books. And that might be able to slip through. Is that a loophole? Yeah, probably. But right now, what folks are saying is that books are exempt, but that could change, right? Because they're really not books, they're really games, right? So we'll see. I'm interested in this, actually. All right, so Carl Crater played Remember Limerick. Does that involve Vinegar Hill at all? It was very good. If you have interest in the topics, check them out and it's all through Blue Panther, yeah. So, well, we did eat an hour and a half with that, so that's pretty good. So we have 235 people here tonight, folks. I'm positive that the topic that I picked had something to do with it. But frankly, I feel like I need a fresh influx of topics anyway. And I am very pleased that the chat, due to the caliber of folks that come by here each and every week, we did not happen to encounter any complete stupidity in the chat. So I would like to thank everybody for being involved in a conversation like actual adults. Even if they were on stick, I can print on self-adhesive paper. That's not the problem. The cutting the counters out is the problem. So some of Lock and Load's older stuff is coming back through print and play, but that's like their older stuff. I don't know that really anything new is coming through print and play. They're just using that as a way to keep some of their older games in print, functionally in print, right? Which sounds like a good idea to me. It's not that it's hard, it's that it's time consuming, and I don't like paper crafts. I hate paper crafts. My wife loves paper craft. May I get her to do it? Canvas maps. I've never played on one of the canvas maps yet. It really depends. It really depends. I got the big vinyl mat for Europa Universalis, and it's real nice. So there you go, Stuart. Very good. Thanks for stopping by. I'll tell you what, man, I felt like I was under a lot of pressure just setting this show up this week. So I think Carrie moving stuff to Blue Panther makes a lot of sense, actually. I think that's a good move on his part, to be honest. Imagine stickering the Battle for Normandy or Case Blue. I've done it myself. I've made counters. It's a pain in the ass, especially if they're double-sided and you got to line the backs up too. I know there's techniques to do it right. I didn't know those techniques at the time. Even if you know those techniques, it is still a pain in the ass, and I do not wish to do it. I'm also I might say that at the end of the show. Let me put it that way. Well, don't tell this to my wife. So, if we're talking about the canvas maps, yeah, I would agree with that because they'll end up you'll end up folding them, right? And the folds don't come out that easily. You can get them out. You can lay something on top of it. It's fine, but they might not fit nicely back in the box. All right. So Mike Reed says it might make him have more discipline to only buy the quality stuff and less of just everything out here. I mean, I was already taking that step due to other factors before any of this blew up. So I have, just to get this out, I have literally not taken an art class since grade school. So there's that. And I didn't go to a junior high school. I went through a 1 to 8 Catholic grade school. So we had like junior high level, but it was we didn't really go to a junior high. Brian Lindsay refuses to plan any paper maps that are larger than a player aid card. I mean, hey, if this is your preference, cool. I have no issues with that. I personally am. If it's a war game, I am almost certainly going to put Plexi over it anyway. If it's something like Churchill or Congress of Vienna or something like that, I probably won't, at least if the map lays flat. But if it's like, a war game with 500 counters and a bunch of hexes and all that, I'll put Plexi on it. So I have got, well, I should say my wife, who does enjoy paper crafts, has some like legit Egyptian papyrus around here somewhere. It's pretty cool. Epic Counters does not count as paper crafts. John Mog just released... the First Victories canvas maps are quite nice, by the way. I like Churchill. With the 10% at Tariff for Australia, I don't know how this will work out. I think the way the plan from GMT is currently taking shape, what it looks like is that Australian customers will pay whatever tariff Australia has in place with China, and the U.S. is not involved. It will ship directly from China. China is the country of origin, so it will just be like that. I don't know what the tariff landscape in Australia looks like at the moment. So now I did take 4 years of drafting in high school. That didn't count at the time. Actually, I think it did count as an art credit for me. But it's really not I didn't feel like it was an artistic class. So that said, now I'm working on a map. So there you go. So this was Joe Perez. Thanks for stopping by. If I haven't said that already, mentions Richard Berg's Guns of Cedar Creek, which you had to self-mount. Rubber cement. Ooh. Yeah, I don't like that stuff either. SDI was Richard Berg's like self-publishing imprint, I guess. And they did 3 or 4 or 5 things, maybe something like that, which doesn't sound like a lot when we were talking about Richard Berg. He swiftly made the connection over with GMT, and they got some cool stuff. All right. Yep, this is how it works. Welcome to marriage. What can I say? This could happen. I'm catching up to the chat here. I'm actually caught up on the chat. So again, to kind of put the tariff conversation, and again, if you would like to hear like actual experts on what the specific situation is now and who are experts in tariffs in general, that information is out there. I would encourage you to go find that information if you are interested. That was not what we were doing here tonight. We were talking about the impact that the current situation has on GMT as outlined in their post. So it's a bad situation, but there are upsides. Potentially people that are not in the US will get their games faster and cheaper. And everybody else will be able to take advantage for the next 60 days of their 25% discount code for basically everything that they've got in a warehouse right now. So now would be a good time to order from GMT. If they have those 4-inch boxes that Kai was asking about like a month ago, I would order several of them today because I can use those. I mean, also don't forget that there are going to be workarounds too, right? And those are still getting felt out. There probably will be workarounds for individual consumers. So John C., for example, basically has his stuff sent from GMT or whoever to a freight forwarder that every quarter or whatever it is, puts them all in a crate, throws them on a pallet, and ships them to the Philippines. So there are workarounds at the individual consumer level that people can explore, and I expect that people will be exploring those things. But that doesn't really help GMT out. So, yeah, me too. I went to Ohio State for architecture at first. Bombed out instantaneously. Realized immediately that, hey, this is an artistic field and not an engineering field. You have to take some math, but I was not prepared for that. My high school guidance counselor should have prepared me for that. I love the plain white boxes that GMT sells. So, I experimented with this. I have seen other people experiment with 3D printing counters as well. On my printer, they look like shit. I have a filament printer. If you have a resin printer, you may get far better results than I did. And you may also need to paint them. And I'm not mounting my own counters. I'm not painting the numbers in on my own counters either. No, we will not be doing that. I don't have time for that. Okay. So there are not that many public universities in Ohio that have architecture programs. To the best of my recollection, it's Kent State, Ohio State, and University of Cincinnati. That's my recollection. Cincinnati's a pretty good engineering school too. So yeah, I did not. I switched to chemistry. You could try this. One thing I will tell you though is because filament printed 3D prints have a texture, and your wash will run into all those cracks. I have tried this; it works poorly. If you're going to paint those, you would need to use actual paint, not wash. Wash would not work. Now, again, on resin prints where you can get much better resolution, it might work a lot better. It might. I don't know. Oh yeah, this is absolutely right. There is, art students have to have talent. I had no talent. That was my problem. I ended up getting a degree in history, so of course I went right into IT, as everybody knows. All right. And, we're probably going to see people driving stuff across the border too. Those folks who live close enough to the border. I can't really imagine a situation in which it would be easier for me to drive up to Toronto, even though that's not that long of a drive for me to get GMT products. I am drinking Whistle Pig. I've had Whistle Pig before. I had a tasting menu of Whistle Pig when we were in Seattle, and it wasn't the rye; it was all the bourbons, and it was pretty good. The old stuff's pretty good. It was expensive. But it was a special occasion, so I was okay with that. Well, Mike Reed is right about this. He says there's lots of downside that's being discussed because that's what's kind of on the table at the moment. But he wonders whether companies taking a good look at their operations may result in some improvements to their business models. I think this is plausible too, but that doesn't necessarily help if the company just cannot afford to operate given this new landscape and the new numbers involved. So the company's got to survive to take advantage of improvements to their business model, if you know what I'm saying. Oh, Marty's going to Stack. That's cool. Say hi to Dan for me. I don't think he's going, but I have seen stuff printed through the Game Crafter, unless it is a very straightforward thing, like just like a pack of cards or something like that. It tends to be pretty expensive. Tin games from the Game Crafter works well in some cases. See, Trench Knife. Okay, gotcha. And the Century Box in Calgary is supposed to be a fabulous game store. I wouldn't know. I've never been to Calgary, but it is one of the places I would look at first were I to suddenly decide I needed to move to Canada. So Mo from Mo's Game Table is back. I'm not sure I said hello to you, Mo, when you first showed up. So thanks for stopping by. Marty the Mule. I like that one. So, all right. So, do I have anything else on my outline? Let me check. Where's my outline? There's my outline. Looks like no. Oh, you know what I didn't do, though? I didn't put a link to the Ardwulf Lair Discord community in the chat. There is an Ardwulf Lair Discord community. It has been great so far, so hop on over there if you haven't already. I just put it in the chat just now. So, well, soon, Carl, war games will be more expensive than cocaine. So, actually, they might already be, to be fair. This is a good question. I don't know. I have no particular insight. But GMT does seem to sell a decent amount of stuff to customers that aren't in the United States. I have no idea to what extent that's true for, say, Multiman or Compass or Decision, right? Who are probably the other wargame kind of publishers, at least in my space, because I tend to buy a decent amount of games from all of those companies, right? As well as SPI and Avalon Hill that don't exist anymore. So there you go. That's sounds like a retirement plan to me. I mean, it's this or going to prison at this point, right? So you be the war game smuggler. John, I think that Apple TV has it, but I wouldn't. I mean, watch it if you want. But you could also just let random people on the street punch you in the face if you want. So not my recommendation, but you do what you feel you need to do. I have not seen the extended edition. Maybe it's better. I don't know. That has been the case with some Ridley Scott movies before. The director's cut of Kingdom of Heaven is very good film. The theatrical release was just mutilated in the editing room and did not thrive under those conditions. Stephen Rochelle, the answer is no. I will be running Alliance from Colombia. We kind of made a decision to not do this year. There are other big things running in that area. I just will not be in charge of them. I am running Congress of Vienna and Alliance and doing a War Room seminar, or War College seminar. That is what is happening. Hey, if you liked it, good for you. I thought it was a turd. So that is okay. There is good stuff on Apple TV, so you don't have to subscribe to it for Napoleon. Perfidious Albion says even the director's edition is crap. Mike Reed, I'm not sure if you asked before, but yeah, New England Simulations does print in the U.S. There are publishers that do, but those are publishers who kind of fit into the scale of operations that companies that run print shops in the U.S. can deal with, right? A couple hundred copies, maybe up to 1,500 or 2,000 copies. And that's kind of the neighborhood that, say, MMP prints in, is sort of that 1,200 copy type of neighborhood. So Greyhound is pretty good, by the way. That's available on Apple TV. That is pretty good. I watched a video on somewhere last night about how great Foundation was now. I don't know. I haven't seen anything since the first season, which I was not pleased with. There's an episode of Foundation the first episode is pretty good. Then there's another episode, it's like the third or fourth episode, as I recall, that is excellent. And I hated every other episode of the first season. So yeah, this is true. I mean, I've heard good things about Severance, but I haven't done anything. Ted Lasso is pretty good. So I believe Hell's Highway is the next up from, and Marty will clarify here, but I believe on Hell's Highway, the new version of John Butterfield's classic Hell's Highway from Victory Games back in the 80s, a substantial improvement to the original game, as far as I can tell, is the next thing up from New England Simulations. I've heard really good things about Slow Horses. Mark Herman has recommended it very strongly. Another thing that is great, I will 100% back Foundation on this. Lee Pace is awesome in that show. He is awesome in that show. And Jared Harris is really good. And I've never seen Jared Harris actually be bad in anything. And generally, the cast is really good. It's the writing that bugged me in that first season. So, oh, there you go. This is the Russian. When was this made? Is this the old one, or was this one of the recent ones? Because there was a relatively recent Russian War and Peace too. For All Mankind was neat, but I felt like it was a lot of human drama that I wasn't involved in, and I wanted to see more cool space shit. So, Counterpart, I saw parts of Counterpart on Amazon though, not on Apple. I got to see Masters of the Air. I think For All Mankind just has tons and tons and tons and tons of potential. So, well, I think that Fabrizio prints in Italy, if I'm not mistaken, or at least in Europe. So this might not affect Thin Red Line, or at least not much. Printers in Europe will have some ability to move things around because of the EU and the Schengen area and all that stuff. So no, I haven't. I don't want to give Apple any money. That's why I'm being cheap. So was this the one that had, I think, Gerard Depardieu as Fouché in it? I think I'm remembering that correctly. I've seen that. That is pretty good. Yeah, I am. I don't want to go grab a game. Yeah, I heard about this. I'll watch this. I think part of their alternate history that they have built is that the chief designer Sergei Korolev did not die on the operating table during a routine operation in the alternate history, and there actually was a Soviet moon program. So, I mean, there was historically a Soviet moon program, but a lot of the gas went out of that kind of stuff when Korolev died. So, yeah. So this is another thing. They print, I think, 300, maybe 400 copies at a time. That's why they also have a pretty unusual pre-ordering system where basically you send them an email and say, I would like 2 copies or whatever it is, whenever they become available. And then when they become available, you will receive, having sent them that, you will receive a purchase link to pay for the game, and then they'll ship the game. They always print a few extras over and above their pre-orders, but not many. And those extras tend to evaporate within sometimes as little as an hour once they are made available. So, we'll stay tuned on that. Steve, you're in the loop on this, Steve. So let's not talk about it too much. It looks really cool, though. It looks really cool. Andor, first season of Andor was amazing. It did one of the reasons why the Star Wars people didn't like it is it doesn't feel as much like Star Wars as you expect Star Wars stuff to feel like Star Wars. I liked that about it. To me, it felt like Star Wars, but it felt like exploring a new direction of Star Wars, and I thought that was really cool. And the acting's really good. There's just some absolutely electrifying stuff in there. It's a really good show. You kind of got to be okay with the pace being a little bit slow. It should be faster paced in the second season. So, all right. So apparently, I'm not sure I saw this. Fabrizio did comment. Pull this back up, did comment on the impact for Thin Red Line on U.S. customers. So we'll see what that sounds like. I have not seen that yet. Yeah, oh yeah, pretty much. And I've direct ordered from Thin Red Line before, and have had zero issues. Their games are kind of expensive, but they also have often been quite large, so no problem. No, there is no issue. I did mention this up front in the show. Insofar as this is an issue, normally I have been historically posting updates about where the process is at and all that stuff in previous years. I have decided I do not have the time to do that. The process is proceeding. The public ballot will be open during the month of May, 1st through the 31st. I expect the nominating committee to be finished this week and to do the necessary legwork to get the ballots out for the month of May. Sometime in the first half of June, the awards will be announced. So everything is happening exactly as it is supposed to. I just haven't been talking about it very much. Because we need a promotional person to do this. I cannot do this too. So, yes, I thought this was really interesting. This was a really layered portrayal of these rebel guys are not necessarily like Luke Skywalker, with no nuance, right? These are people doing some nasty stuff. I believe they do. I think they do. I could be wrong about this. So, Andor, I thought Andor was I liked Rogue One. There's a lot of cool stuff in Rogue One, but it also shows I think signs of having been through multiple rounds of development and multiple completely different scripts and stuff like that. Whereas Andor was kind of thematically well developed on its own and did not have that problem. I thought Andor is the best piece of Star Wars I've seen possibly since the original Star Wars, to be honest. So I agree with this. Put some vampires in there. Are we talking about Stellan Skarsgård? That's a pretty cool scene. I don't know if I'd even call it a space combat scene, but if we're talking about the same thing, and possibly we aren't. All right, Carl's a big fan of Andor too. Apparently, yeah, it's really good. I am at this point kind of feeling like Star Wars feels awfully stale to me, right? Part of that is I'm older now. I've seen all this stuff. I've seen a lot of it many times. I'm just kind of tired of it. And I've been tired of it since this latest batch of stuff. Certainly some of the stuff that they're doing is good. The Mandalorian had good stuff. Some of it's good. Some of it wasn't. Boba Fett was not very good. Obi-Wan was okay. I'm not sure I've watched much else, to be honest. But I really liked Andor. I thought Andor was really good. It makes the Empire seem formidable, as opposed to, hey, these are the guys with the soldiers who can't hit anything with their guns. So, I think we hinted at something like this in our interview with Ted not too long ago. I am 100% on board with that. I mean, I think you can certainly see that I think it's fair to say that if whatever else you want to say about George Lucas, at least he had like a creative vision that he was following, even if I didn't necessarily think that it was well developed. And I'm not sure we've seen that with the current spate of Star Wars things. It hasn't all been terrible, but I'm kind of tired of it. I like Star Wars as much as the next person, but only that much, right? I'm not like Mr. Star Wars going to the Star Wars theme park and paying $2,500 a day or whatever it costs. I can go to fucking Westworld for that amount of money. So, the sequel trilogy had many enormous problems. There is no question about that. But again, a lot of those problems are the same kind of things that I just talked about with Rogue One, where it's like, oh, we're going to hire so-and-so to develop a new trilogy. And then a year later, so-and-so has said, nah, I dropped out of that. It was lame. And they threw out all the scripts and are starting over with new scripts. And it's a big, long development hell type of process. It's very difficult for good product to come out of that type of situation. And ultimately, it comes down to creative control and creative vision. Andor had the benefit of that creative control and creative vision, as did The Mandalorian. I just think they ran out of stuff to do with The Mandalorian. So, anyway. I really like, what's his name as an actor? And I thought that he did a good job with that character, but the writing was atrocious. So, the bad writing doesn't help anybody. I didn't see this. I should probably watch this, but I didn't see this. Adam Driver, right? Adam Driver. So, ex-Marine, Mo. There you go. So, well, so again, it's the same type of situation. They had J.J. Abrams, who I think is fundamentally a fairly lazy director, but at least was a fan of Star Wars. So I felt like the first of those 3 sequel movies was like, well, okay, this is okay. At least it felt like Star Wars. But then the second one came out, and while there were things in the second one that I really liked, there were also absolutely mystifying decisions made with everybody. And then the third one came out, and again, it didn't feel some of the story elements that they used didn't feel like Star Wars story elements. And again, there's like, I'm just really not sure what they're thinking. We really need to see can't we see something fucking new? Do we need a new Death Star in the next movie too? And the Emperor comes back again. Can't we do something fresh, for Pete's sake? I mean, they could have used all that expanded material, that Timothy Zahn stuff. A lot of that stuff is pretty good. Those Timothy Zahn Star Wars books are pretty good. They could have used that. And in the TV stuff, they have at least started to explore some of that material. So there's that. Oh, this is fair. Yeah, this is good point. Herbert Commander, thanks for stopping by. Much appreciated. Brant, thanks for stopping by as well. What time is it? We got about 9 minutes left here. This is explicitly a baffling decision in The Last Jedi that I took grievous exception to. Okay, so Laura Dern's character, I might get 9 minutes out of this. Laura Dern's character is brought in, and she's sort of she's fundamentally a fairly interesting character, but then is immediately mishandled, and there is no reason to consider this character anything other than an obstacle. Okay. In Finn in particular's way, but really everybody. And then I'm going to spoil the movie, but if you haven't seen it, I'm sorry, plug your ears or something. Late in the movie, the ship that's carrying all the refugees, I didn't like any of this plot line either, by the way. The ship that's carrying like all the refugees and Princess Leia and all these other people is being chased by the Imperials, who can now track stuff through hyperspace, apparently because magic. And at one point, the ship gets hit, and a bunch of people get sucked out into vacuum, including beloved characters. And Princess Leia somehow magically uses the Force to survive. But by that point, Carrie Fisher had passed away anyway. So it's just a absolutely baffling creative choices. So then, slightly later in the movie, somebody gets to sacrifice themselves to blow up the Imperial pursuers. Okay, the actual visual shot, I think, is really cool, by the way. But the character that gets to do that is this new character with some potential, played by Laura Dern, who is, as an actor, I like. I'm like, wait a minute, this is dumb. You could have given this role to Princess Leia, which would have been meaningful. Admittedly, when they wrote the story, they didn't know Carrie Fisher was going to pass away. They could have given this role to Admiral Akbar, who was like on the bridge at the time and gets sucked out through the airlock into space like a chump. Everybody would have fucking cheered had it been Admiral Akbar who had sacrificed himself for the betterment of the rebellion, instead of Laura Dern's new character, who we have been given no reason to react to in any way other than to dislike her. So it's just bad creative choices riddled through the entire trilogy, but especially in the second and third movies. So, yeah, I kind of agree with this. Actually, they took some of the shitty stuff from the expanded universe instead of the good stuff. I agree. I mean, it's not like they didn't. It's not like that didn't bother me as much as many of the other things in the movie. Let me put it that way. Finn was wasted because they clearly didn't have a plan. They clearly had, I mean, there are things that get set up in the first one that never get followed up on with both Finn and Rey and Kylo. So there's like a bunch of stuff left dangling for no particular reason because there was no plan. The plan was, let's make 3 new Star Wars movies and make a bunch of money. That was the plan. So, and I will point out that J.J. Abrams in particular is not that good at planning because Lost. There you go. So, Time Bandits. I kind of want to see the new Time Bandits, which I think is also on Apple TV. Am I right about that? 8 was trying The Last Jedi was trying really hard to do interesting things, and I liked some of the interesting things that it did. It's really hard to, I mean, I think from like a film perspective, as somebody who watches movies, I think there's tons of narrative problems in all 3 of those movies. It's not like there were no narrative problems in the 3 original ones, but it really stuck out. And for like Star Wars fans who really are going to end up being disappointed by the treatment of beloved characters in those 3 sequels, I am not surprised at all that the reactions were negative. Do I think those negative reactions were often inappropriate on the part of fans? Yeah, absolutely. Jake Lloyd should not have been driven or Ahmed Best should not have been driven to near suicide by people sending him death threats. But, oh, this is super cheesy. This was super cheesy too. Like I said, all kind of problems. I'll tell you what, the first season of Lost is really good. The second season is okay. After that, it becomes very clear that there is no plan. So, I found that History of the World Part 2 on Hulu, which I did watch, had approximately 1 movie's worth of funny stuff spread out over 6 hours. So it would have been way better as an hour and a half movie. Yes, this is absolutely true too. Structurally, the Force Awakens is too similar to the original Star Wars. So yeah, I know what you mean. So, all right, folks. So we have a couple of minutes left here, so I'm gonna just babble. So, and if anybody hasn't liked the video so far, please do that. Please subscribe to the channel if you haven't done that already. There's a bunch of ways to help support the channel in the video description, so check those out. And a big shout out to both the patrons of Ardwulf's Lair, which again, I can't say this often enough, really enables the channel to continue. We wouldn't be able to do it without that assistance. And of course, there's our friends at Noble Knight Games as well, from whom we heard earlier. So, all right, let's check what's going. The Lost Ship. That looks interesting, actually. Some of the storylines in Lost were really cool. It wasn't that the material was bad necessarily. It's that there was no plan, and the structure of the show doesn't work without there being a plan. I hated the ending. But I thought that the whole series had jumped the shark well before that anyway, so it's all good. All right, Sean Sullivan, thanks so much for stopping by. Well, they didn't really have an ending. I mean, the show only went up to the end of book 6. There's 3 more books. Admittedly, there's a big time jump between books 6 and 7. I haven't actually not read 7, 8, and 9. I have them. I picked them up, but I haven't read them yet. So, anyway. All right. So, I also want to thank everybody for, again, I hoped this would happen, but I was concerned that it wouldn't be, because we might have had, and we did have some new people here tonight. We might have had some, let's say, characters that we feel are not going to contribute in a positive way toward any conversation that they may be participating in, and none of them showed up tonight. So everything was cool. We didn't have to yell at anybody. That was great. So, I mean, this was the hope. And hey, I'm on board with it. I loved the show, but I really like the books too. So. So big shout outs to Stacking Limit and John Longshore, our moderators. We are about to sign off for the night here, folks. They sort of left a dangler that they might continue it at some point. But like 20 years passed between, like after book 6 and into book 7. So allowing the actors a few years to age is a bad idea. I think you surprised a number. I may have surprised a number of people here with that today, or you all did actually. This could have easily been contentious and a total shit show, and I might have canned the whole show after like half an hour, and I didn't have to do that. So I'm very happy about that. So everybody have a great rest of the night. We will try and come up with a slightly less contentious topic for next week's show, but we'll see. So I'll see everybody next week. Have a great rest of the night, and we'll see you all again soon.